Hi friends, today we'll be discussing about the causes of climate change, in particular the anthropogenic induced climate change. In the past session, we have discussed about the natural causes of climate change that includes the solar activity, orbital variations, volcanic eruptions and the tectonic processes. In this session, we'll be discussing how human actions, particularly in the post-industrialization era, they caused the changes in the climate. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has categorically stated that anthropogenic induced climate change is very, very important or significant for the existence of all the living organisms on the earth. The human influence on the climate system is very clear, and the recent anthropogenic emissions of radiatively active gases are highest in history. The recent climate changes have had widespread impacts on human and also the natural ecosystems. It is essential to attribute the changes in climate to either natural causes or human influence. However, it is a great challenge, to attribute the causes of climate change because the climate system is highly complex. It's dynamic in nature, so it's a great challenge indeed. Further, the natural causes of climate change prevail over a long period of time, and the natural causes are overlaid by the human-induced causes. The drivers of climate change, as I said, it's both the natural origin and anthropogenic activity. However, in the industrial era, the human activities are more responsible for causing climate change. Anthropogenic drivers include changes in the greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere, changes in land use, changes in aerosol concentration. Let us discuss the drivers of climate change one by one. These changes, anthropogenic induced changes, are responsible for bringing in a change in the climate system. The increase in greenhouse gas concentration and other changes in the terrestrial ecosystem endeavor to increase the radiative forcing and global temperatures. So the first and foremost thing is increase in greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere. We have studied the role played by the water vapor and other naturally occurring greenhouse gases in causing the natural greenhouse effect in the past sessions. The post-industrialization increase in the concentration of greenhouse gases are mainly due to human activities. The extent to which each greenhouse gas perturbs the climate system over a particular time period depends on the concentration of the greenhouse gas in the atmosphere and also its radiative forcing. The largest contribution comes from the burning of fossil fuels, combustion of fossil fuels, mainly for transportation, heating purposes and cooling of the buildings and industrial applications. There has been a remarkable increase in the combined radiative forcing of carbon dioxide, methane and nitrous oxide for over the last few centuries. These three are very, very important greenhouse gases: the carbon dioxide, the methane and the nitrous oxide. Their increase during the past 4 decades has been at least 6 times faster than that observed over the last 2 millennia. It's tremendous. The human activities are estimated to have caused approximately 1 degree of global warming above pre-industrial levels, with a likely range of 0.8 degree centigrade to 1.2 degree centigrade, and this is very much because of the increase in greenhouse gases concentration in the atmosphere. The second important cause is the changes in the land use. The land use may be changed for various reasons, including but not limited to urbanization, agricultural activity and industrialization. These land use changes bring about the changes in the land cover, the most visible and important of them being the deforestation activity. The land use changes impacts rainfall pattern, soil pattern and land degradation. The deforestation influences the climate through changing the atmospheric composition and also influencing the hydrological cycle. The anthropogenic land use change has increased the land surface albedo, which leads to an radiative forcing of minus 0.15 plus or minus 0.1 watt per meter square. Next important cause is the changes in the aerosol level. Atmospheric aerosols are very fine particles suspended in air. They are formed by the dispersal of material at the Earth's surface, and they are called as primary aerosols, or by reaction of gases in the atmosphere. In that case, it is called as secondary aerosols. As far as the aerosols are concerned, they are very important from the changing dynamics in the climate system. They include sulfate and nitrates from the oxidation processes. Second important aerosol is the organic materials from the oxidation of volatile organic compounds. Third important aerosol is the soot from the forest fires or fires of whether it's a biomass fire or any other fires. The last one is the mineral dust from the wind-blown processes. So these are the important aerosols. They can influence the climate system. Aerosols affect the climate through various processes, through various ways, namely increasing the scattering of solar radiation, interaction with atmospheric gases, and the indirect effect of cloud condensation nuclei on the cloud albedo. So we have seen the anthropogenic induced climate change. The foremost important cause we have come to know is that the increase in the greenhouse gas concentration. And the greenhouse gas concentration increase is because of mainly the energy use, because that is the most important sector as far as the greenhouse gas emission is concerned. And what is that we need to learn from this particular reason is that we need to take the steps possible, mitigation steps possible in the energy sector, so that the greenhouse gas concentration emission can be reduced or minimized. The second important thing that we need to take into account as far as the greenhouse gas emission is concerned is the increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. These are the three important greenhouse gases. And when you look at the concentration of these three gases, the main sources apart from the energy sector is the agriculture sector also. So when you see the gases, the methane and nitrous oxide, the emission is mainly from the agriculture sector. Agriculture sector, because of the increase in the agricultural area, increased use of the fertilizers and whatnot. Every action of agricultural activity can have an impact on climate system through emission of greenhouse gases. But at the same time, there are a lot of potential, mitigation potential is there in the agriculture sector, and by adopting this mitigation potential, definitely we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from the agriculture. There are a lot of methods, lot of technologies, lot of practices are there in the agriculture sector. By adopting that technologies, we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, because the agriculture sector has to be taken into account from the perspective of food security, from the perspective of changing dynamics in the food system, from the perspective of increasing human population also. So definitely we need to develop technologies, we need to develop the practices so that the carbon footprint from the agriculture sector is minimized, and that is possible from focusing pragmatically in the agriculture sector. So definitely we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from the agriculture. So the take-home message from this particular discussion is that the anthropogenic induced climate changes is very important as far as the potential impact, the rapidity is concerned, but at the same time, lot of measures, lot of mitigation and adaptation measures can be taken into account. By taking that mitigation measures, we can reduce drastically the greenhouse gas emissions. So let us go for a related concept as far as the cause of climate change is concerned, that is climate feedback. The mean state of the atmosphere as well as its variations, I'm talking about the climate variability, depend on the climate dynamics and the interaction and feedbacks between the components of the climate system. We have seen in the climate system discussion, the various components, the lithospheric component, atmospheric component, the vegetation or terrestrial ecosystem, the cryosphere, see the hydrosphere, see these all components will interact, and this interaction is very important for us to understand the Earth's climate, to understand the changing dynamics in the climate system, and also to understand the increase in the surface air temperature. And in that regard, the climate feedback is equally important. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change defines climate feedback as an interaction in which the perturbation in one climate quantity causes a change in the second, and the change in the second quantity ultimately leads to an additional change in the first one. This is climate feedback. And as regards the climate feedback, it can be either a positive one or a negative one. A positive feedback is one in which the initial perturbation is enhanced, is augmented, it is increased. On the other hand, a negative feedback is one in which the initial perturbation is weakened, dampened by the changes it causes. Both positive and negative feedbacks occur in the climate system. The internal processes are considered as those processes that occur within the climate system, and they include atmospheric weather systems, ocean circulations, and also the processes occurring at the land surface interface. That's a very important thing. The external to the climate system are not affected by the state of the system. In fact, the climate system is forced by the external processes. So there are a lot of feedbacks as far as climate feedback is concerned. Let us see one by one. First and foremost feedback is the water vapor feedback. The water vapor feedback is a significant positive feedback that increases the sensitivity of the surface temperature to carbon dioxide by nearly a factor of 2 when considered in isolation from other climate feedbacks. So think about how water vapor is important, or water vapor feedback is important. And we know that the water vapor is a naturally occurring greenhouse gases, and it's the foremost important greenhouse gas. In a warming climate, that's the present day climate, if you look at it, the atmospheric concentration of water vapor increases, which greatly increases the greenhouse effect and also lead to further warming. This is called as positive feedback. Understand? While this water vapor feedback is reported to be largest in the tropical region, where the tropical environment favors higher air temperature and maximum water vapor concentration. On the other hand, the polar region experiences weaker water vapor feedback. For simple reason is that the water vapor concentration in the polar atmosphere is much lesser. The second feedback is the snow and ice albedo feedback, and this positive feedback loop or feedback can amplify a cooling as well as warming. It's a very important feedback, snow and ice albedo feedback. It all depends on how the change in temperature, how the increase in temperature can have an impact on the cryospheric component of the climate system. The next one is the cloud feedback. The surface warming could result in formation of more clouds, and consequently the increase in albedo on account of more clouds could lower the surface air temperature. Since the original perturbation, the surface warming, is reduced in this feedback, the feedback is called as negative feedback. However, since clouds are formed of water vapor, increase in the cloud formation due to surface warming could result in increased atmospheric water vapor content, leading to more surface warming. This is called positive feedback. The next feedback is the lapse rate feedback. The lapse rate is defined as the rate of change of an atmospheric variable, usually temperature, with height. The stronger lapse rate leads to a stronger greenhouse effect. The lapse rate is influenced by the radiative processes, large-scale dynamical processes, and convection. So, in this session, we have discussed both the anthropogenically induced climate change causes and also the climate feedback. And as regards the climate feedback, it's very important. For simple reason is that the dynamics in the climate system, the interaction in the climate system can be understood much better by knowing the climate feedbacks. Either it is the snow and ice albedo feedback or a cloud feedback, and the most important thing is the water vapor feedback. So when you look at all the feedbacks, we can understand the changing climate in a much better perspective. Thank you.